Hey, you over there. Yeah, you, come here. Okay, so if you're listening to this episode, this is me, Stuart, the host of Snarky Faith, right? If you've listened before, you kind of get that. It's not that hard. Okay, but I have an important message for you before you listen to this podcast. No, this is not a sales pitch. This is important because I'm reaching out to you from the future. The future. Well, actually, not the future by the time you listen to it, because I'm reaching out to you from the future, but when you listen to it, it'll be the past, because all of this happened before the show was recorded, or actually happened after the show was recorded, but before you listen to it. So, okay, really, before we get into some sort of a weird time paradox here, here's what I'm going to explain real quick. Okay, so for those of you that are regular listeners of the show, you know that we go out over terrestrial radio, and then I send things out over podcasts. But oftentimes there's a week or two delay between terrestrial radio and when it goes out over podcast. Connecting with me here, right? So there's a gap in time often. And our main story that we're going to talk about in the show today is complementarianism. If you don't know what that is, I'm not going to spoil that for you. And after we recorded the show, there was this whole kerfuffle that happened. And you'll know more about this. But it happened between Beth Moore and John MacArthur. And for those that don't know John MacArthur, he's kind of like a sweet and cuddly and old, like the Emperor from Star Wars. You know, the old curmudgeon that wanted to kill everyone and was horribly evil and nasty and disgusting. He's pretty much exactly that in the Christian world. So, in our talk of complementarianism, what I do is I actually, and you can roast me later, I actually criticize some of how Beth Moore was approaching things. And the story came out before John MacArthur put in his 2 cents. Now, we are having a very difference of opinion between MacArthur and I. You'll hear about it in the show. So, here's what I'm going to warn you ahead of time in the midst of this. When you hear this sound, it means you're going to be listening to the Stuart of the future, not the Stuart of the past that was in the radio show Snarky Faith. You'll be listening to me visiting the show from the future. So, remember, when you hear this sound, it's actually me going 88 miles an hour in the DeLorean, getting in the midst of the show, somewhere in the middle, to give you an important message, to give a little bit of better rounding about context. So you know all that? You know all that? The more you know, the more you know. So now that you've been warned, I can let you go back to the present, and I will go back to the future, which is actually your past. It's really, really confusing. I know, I should have this all written down and have charts and everything else like that, but enough of that. Enough of that, and onward and upward to Snarky Faith. Enjoy.
You're listening to WCOM LP 103.5 FM Carborough and Chapel Hill. It's a Tuesday, it's 5 o'clock, and that only means one thing. It's time for another round of Snarky Faith with your host, Stuart Deloney. This is a space where we irreverently wrestle through life, culture, and spirituality, all with our heads in the clouds, our tongues in our cheeks, our hearts in our sleeves, and our feet on the ground. At Snarky Faith, the questions or even the answers are never the point. It's all about the conversation. So here's your host, Stuart Deloney.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to another round of Snarky Faith Radio. I'm your host, Stuart Deloney, and welcome again here. We're back here another week here with Snarky Faith, and we're going to be getting pretty darn snarky today. The snark shall be thick. It shall be dripping from the ceilings like Velveeta. I'm not really sure what that means, but instead of me getting caught up in a Donald Trumpian type word salad, I'm going to continue to push forward. So there is a lot of chaos, a lot of craziness today. And in the midst of this, the one thing that no one's asking about, that no one's asking for us to do a deep dive into, is complementarianism. That's right. You may not even know what I'm talking about when I say terms like complementarianism. But oh boy, we're going to talk about it. And we're going to talk about it in regards to a lot of the crazy stuff that's happening in the world today. So yes, it's a fun theological term that essentially just means misogyny. So if you understand what misogyny means, you know what the theological stance of complementarianism means, right? All right, I've already got you up to speed on this. So before we go too deep in this, we have kind of a rich, this is kind of like a rich mosaic, smattering, quilted bicker-upper of how we're going to go about the Christian crazy of the week. It's actually going to be it's going to feel scattershot at first, but you're going to see like the crazy people in movies where you start getting a cork board and yarn and push pins that everything's going to point in a direction or it won't. And we're just going to be the crazy people in those movies. Either way, you're still here and we're going to kick off the Christian crazy in a moment. But for those of you that may just be tuning into this and have no idea what you're listening to right now, you are listening to Snarky Faith. Oh, that was easy enough. No. Snarky Faith Radio, we started this whole idea, was to be able to point out the insanity within Christianity and also to be able to dialogue through what does it look like to actually be a faithful follower of Jesus, even though the rest of institutionalized faith in Christianity has gone... Well, many have flown over the cuckoo's nest, and it's our job to point that out, but also point you to a better way, a better ethic, a better way to walk, a better way to stay sane in this insane environment that we live in. And in the age of Trump, Trump plus Christianity equals, it equals a bunch of I actually had to stop and pause because I don't want to start swearing this early. So let's just go ahead and start just say that, in summary, the age that we are living in, especially within people that are faithful or living out a faithful lifestyle, this time, this place that we are in, it is quite insane. It is quite crazy. It is quite off its rocker, off the rails, off of many other things like that too. So without further ado, hey, and if you're new here, you'll catch on real quick, or you'll just tune us out. Either way, we're going to keep moving forward. Let's go ahead and hop into the Christian crazy of the week, because there's a lot of it, and it's pretty crazy. So, here we go.
Lord have mercy. The Lord is my shepherd. He know what I want.
So as we're kicking this thing off here, guys, as we're running full speed into the Christian crazy, man, I'm just going to start off with an easy one. And this comes from someone who I'm not really familiar with, but once I stumbled onto this soundbite, and it is a doozy. It is a good one. This is Doug Giles, who has written a book called Would Jesus Vote for Trump? Now, let me go ahead and just solve the puzzle of his book. Doug's going to tell you that the answer to that is a resounding yes. So already, I've just saved you money from ever having to buy his book, because Would Jesus Vote for Trump? We all know that's a resounding what? Huh? Yeah, it's that kind of thing. So I just want to give you a bit of a snippet here of Doug talking in a radio interview, talking about his book, talking about how Trump is so much like Jesus. It's like looking into a funhouse mirror, because I really have nothing else to give on this one right here, but it is nutty. It's crazy, and it's yep. Sometimes you feel like a nut, sometimes you don't. This one is all mounds. It's all mounds because it's all nuts. So let's listen here, and then we'll debrief. We'll go through it. We'll kind of unpack it. So yes, Mr. Doug Giles, go ahead, give it to us.
One of the interesting things about Trump, from just a leadership standpoint, that I think is very Christ-like, that a lot of people don't think it's Christ-like at all, is just his boldness. I mean, Jesus would call out the corrupt religious leaders and politicos that were foul, and he would say, "You guys are blind leaders of the blind," and he would do that in public, you know. And if you thought you had a kind of corner on Jesus, he's your buddy and stuff like that, and you invite him to one of your smarmy dinner parties, and all of a sudden you start spinning lies, hype, and spin, he'll call you out in front of your guests. And Trump's boldness, like Reagan had trickle-down economics, I think Trump has trickle-down boldness. Because you look at what
come on, Doug. Like, if we're going for like how Trump's like Jesus, he could pee standing up. He was a mammal. He had fingers. So much like Jesus. So much like Jesus. What? It's what? Okay. So first, I gotta pick this out just a little bit, because again, you're trying to use this as like a thesis for this book that you have written. Jesus was bold. Trump was bold. Also, certain spicy chips are referred to as bold. Just because you can use the word bold doesn't necessarily mean it's Jesus. Because when you're talking about Jesus being bold, Jesus called out the lies and the BS of the power brokers. Jesus wasn't the lies and the BS and the power broker. You kind of see where we're getting at here, Dougie. Like, you're kind of missing this. You're kind of missing like a big, like a big steaming pile of a point here that you've like dumped and you're not seeing it. Trump may be bold. Another word we could call this is privileged. But truth and Trump don't really, they're like as far as east is from the west. Like, you don't like Trump, you get truth anywhere near Trump and he's like, ugh. He's like Superman and Kryptonite. I feel sick. Oh, I don't, truth, get that away from, no, too close, right? What? I mean, sure, he may have been bold, but Jesus actually kind of had a point to what he was saying. Trump is kind of the king of word salad and continues to be corrupt and lie at a record pace. So I'm going to kind of call you out there, Doug. I'm going to say, you're full of shit, Doug. You're full of shit. Dang it. I've already got to use the censor bar this early in the show. Damn it, Doug. Already 10 minutes in, and I've been swearing. I've already put tips in the swear jar already. Oh, dang it. All right, Doug, I'm probably not going to let you in on the show again. You've been banned from the show. I don't even really know if that's a thing or if I'll actually remember this. But it sounds good in the moment. It sounds self-righteous. Just like what you were trying to spin, the yarn that you were going after. So speaking of self-righteous, what? We're never self-righteous here on the show. We just like, yeah, we're a little self-righteous. We're a little, just a scooch, a little scotch of self-righteousness here. But we need a little self-righteousness as we're moving here through the Christian Crazy because we've got one of my man crushes. I know, you're like, Stuart, in the Christian Crazy, you have so many man crushes. I know, it's hard. Like, is it like Franklin Graham? Is it like Robert Jeffress? Or is it like Jim Baker? And again, man crush in this particular scenario is actually kind of meaning quite the opposite, but we're being snarky here because I love to hate on these guys. And there's no one more that I love to hate on than Jim Baker. So, Jim, come on down, buddy. Come on down.
Your book answers the questions I've been asking and about, here's the title, How to Keep Your Head on Straight in a World Gone Crazy.
Yes.
And I want to tell you people today, America has gone crazy.
Yes.
I love it. That's such like a good setup like for me to serve this. This is like a volleyball move, Jim. Right. America's crazy. So crazy. Tell us why we're crazy.
It has.
And Rick, I don't know if you'll agree with me or not. I believe much of politics today, especially those that have gone out on an extreme, and I'll say left, they're way left, I believe there is a massive demon possession in the political realm today. Am I wrong?
I believe it's like hell found a voice.
Yes.
Say that.
Hell found a voice.
Yes.
And hell is speaking through the political system today and through the media.
Yes.
It is amazing.
It really
what's
is.
happening through the media. It's just wicked.
It is
what's
wicked.
taking place.
It is. It's demonic.
It should not be permitted. It just should be. You know, I think about Jesus. Jesus told the demons to shut up.
Yes, he did.
And I thought, we need to take authority over all these voices and just command them to be still.
Amen. Yes.
There's so many things I love about this. It's just beautiful. I love Jim's backup wife that he has here. She's kind of like a backup dancer. It's also his backup wife that, you know, she's kind of like the one in the background. Yes. Yes. So good. Amen. And then, yeah. So all I'm going to say here again, because apparently I'm speaking from a demonic voice. Whatever that's supposed to sound like. I'm not really sure here. But when you've gone so far right, like far away from sanity, I think anything that even seems moderately interesting seems crazy. Right? Can you kind of see what I'm getting at here? For like poor Jim. One, he's not wearing his transitional lenses that can take him from being able to read up close to reading far away. So Jim is not apparently wearing his glasses here, and he's not also realizing that the sand has like sunk, and he's way. This is me being dramatic there. Way to the right. So he's so far to the right. When he looks at anything that's happening that's like against Trump, oh my gosh, it's so far to the left. But dude, this is like your intervention, man. Quit surrounding yourself with enablers. People that are like, amen. There's the money voices. No. Jimbo. Hey. Listen to me. Come on, look at me. Look at me, Jim. Look at me, Jim. Look at me. There are many demonic voices that may be happening right now. It's just not the ones you think. And it's one of those kind of things, you know, honestly, like if you're calling out like demonic voices being spoken, I kind of fall under like the he who smelt it dealt it rule. So like, Jim, like you keep saying you're smelling a lot of stinky, but no one else is saying they dealt it. So, you know, he who smelt it. Jim, you've got a problem. We can all smell it. But again, thanks for playing. Thanks for being on the Christian Crazy, because you make life so much more interesting there, Jimbo. We love you. In the most ironic sense that is possible and known to human beings. Right? But Jim is talking about prayer. So let's talk a little more about prayer. So in regards to this whole idea of prayer and in the same vein of Jim's, the Democrats are demonic because both start with D. I think that's as far as his logic took him. So let's just pray for that little guy as he continues to write out theology with crayons. But in this article, speaking of people that write out theology with crayons, this little bit of the Christian Crazy comes from the Religion News Service in a piece by John Fay entitled "Trump Evangelicals Bewail Civil War While Still Profiting from the Last One." Oh, burn. But I'm wanting to use just a bit of this article to kind of use as a bridge and a transition as we begin to talk about this, where, you know, within conservative Christianity, we like to be able to say demonic, bad. So if we don't like something, it's demonic. It's demonic. Demons. Whatever that sounds like that you'd assume in a horror movie. So speaking about the demonic and speaking about the need for prayer, let's go to one of the biggest riders of his father's coattails, Reverend Franklin Graham. So again, so much love from the show for Franklin Graham. But he'd recently tweeted this. It's just beautiful. So beautiful. It's like a perfect A perfect conversation. It's like a perfect tweet, whatever that means. Our nation seems to be unraveling in hatred. There are forces out to destroy our country and the freedoms that we love. I hope everyone reading this will stop and take a minute to pray for this country and for our presidents, and especially our president. Now, what begins to happen when we talk about in Christianity, forces are against us. That again is code word for demonic activity. And so what Franklin Graham is beginning to say here is somehow he's trying to, in a veiled way, begin to talk about this idea of impeachment. Oh no, impeachment of his favorite double down president of the United States, where he's pushed all the chips in on Trumpy. Oh no. If the word impeachment comes up, it must be demonic. Now, don't believe me of Franklin Graham? Let's talk about Robert Jeffress. He's kind of like, Robert Jeffress reminds me of Smithers from The Simpsons. He was the one that was just kind of the lackey of Mr. Burns. He was the guy that was really just kind of the butt licker, like the voice of continuing to massage the one in power. That Robert Jeffress. The Robert Jeffress that likes to talk really high. So Robert Jeffress in our last show had talked about that impeaching the president will cause a civil war and like fracture in this nation from which the country will never heal. Because again, I just feel like he sounds like he's speaking on helium when he talks. So yes, Robert Jeffress, President First Baptist Dallas. I should know this by now, but I'm First Baptist Dallas. Let's just run with that one. Yes, megachurch pastor, also Fox News contributor, et cetera. There's a lot to unpack within all of that, but he was on Fox Nation. If you guys don't know what Fox Nation is the pay service. It's like Fox After Hours, where you get to see Tucker Carlson like unbutton his shirt a little bit and show you a little bit of his chest flab. Yeah, that kind of After Hours where Hannity takes off his widow's peak and shows you that he's not really Eddie Munster. I don't really know, but yes. Fox After Hours, the pay service. So Robert Jeffress was on the Fox After Hours pay service on the show with Todd Starnes. Remember his name, Todd Starnes, because we're going to kind of get back to Todd Starnes because things happened after Robert Jeffress was on the show. Not going to be a happy one, but let's hear what Robert Jeffress had to say about prayers and demonic activity and keeping it real and keeping it completely sane because, it's not going to go in that direction. Because it's also in the Christian crazy, so come on. This isn't like I'm doing a big spoiler here before I go ahead and say it. Okay, I'm sorry, Stuart. Just be quiet here. Let's go ahead and start.
It's very clear to me that the average American citizen loves this president, and they're not buying into all of this impeachment nonsense.
It may be very clear to Starnes. Not so sure that it's clear to other people. But the good thing is we've got Robert Jeffress here to tell us how it's going to be.
They're not. And look, I heard it over and over again. Like you, I spoke to thousands of these people last week. And the reason they support this president is not because they're religious hypocrites.
No, I'm going to stop you there. That is actually because they're religious hypocrites. It is absolutely 1,000% because they are religious hypocrites. Hypocrites. Yeah. Jeffress, I'm sorry, you can't spend it any other way. It's really the only way. I know you're going to try to tell us otherwise, but that's honestly religious hypocrites. Check. Anything else? Crickets. Chirp. But let's get to the good stuff. Let's talk about how Robert Jeffress feels about prayer.
there is a fear that if the left ever regains control of this country again, our nation is finished. And look, I heard this sanctimonious Nancy Pelosi this weekend calling for prayer for our country, praying for prayer. Look, that reminds me of an arsonist, a pyromaniac with a match in his hand about to set a building on fire saying, now pray with me that the destruction I'm about to cause isn't too severe. I mean, if he's sincere, he'll put down the dang match. And if Nancy Pelosi is sincere about bringing this nation together, she will drop this impeachment effort. Let the American people decide 1 year from now at the ballot box. But she is uncomfortable. She's scared to death at what the American people will choose to do, and that is to keep Donald J. Trump in office.
You know, we just assume they're praying to God. I'm not quite sure. I don't know, Dr. Jeffress. I mean, they booed God, tried to vote him out of the party platform. I mean,
you gotta love it when we're at this place now. We're at this place now where we're like, well, thoughts and prayers? Who are they praying to? I don't know. Maybe it's Satan? But don't worry, you know this. Robert Jeffress won't go down that road, would he? Would he? Oh, hold on a second. Yeah, he would. He totally would. He's going to. It's going to happen. It's like I'm predicting a car crash before it happens. But, you know, here it is. Here it is. Go ahead, Robert. What's it like?
Well, and apparently the God they worship is the God of the pagan God of the Old Testament, Moloch, who allowed for child sacrifice. I mean, the God of the Bible doesn't sanction the killing of millions and millions of children in the womb. I think the God they are worshiping is the God of their own imagination.
Ah, yes. Robert Jeffress showing his real crazy side. I mean, I don't know. I feel like he's kind of nutty to begin with, but this was kind of a whole new level. And him doing this on Starnes' show actually coincided with, oh no! Todd Starnes' contract with Fox News has not been renewed. It's not been renewed on Fox Nation. He feels like he's being silenced. Oh, poor Starnes. But you know, if you're having a political show and you're trying to whip out people praying to Moloch and agreeing, this is all a learning lesson for all of us. Let's just not go ahead and pull out Old Testament gods and demons and use those as kind of political platforms to be able to rip our enemies on. I don't know. But you know who's still on Fox? Robert Jeffress, you little ass. You get Starnes fired, and you're still doing just fine. Aw, Starnes, tear. So Starnes is worried that he's been silenced. Someone else needs to be silenced, which I'm not even going to go into this. I'm not even going to go into this because I want to. There's no time. Oh, someone who needs to be silenced is Kanye West. Kanye and his Sunday services that he's having. He recently had one. Kanye. He's got a following. I mean, I'll give him that. He had his Sunday service in Salt Lake City recently where they had something where around, I think 10,000 people show up to listen to him rant about the fact that the Republican Party is the party that was anti-slave. Oh, Kanye, because Kanye also had to break up this idea of that many of us are living in mental slavery, which also got him into trouble way before on his meltdown. But yes, this may pop up in a further show moving down the line where Kanye West is having Sunday services. Yeah. It's crazy. But in this realm of crazy, as we're beginning to pivot and transition a little bit over to our main story of our hour, I'm going to give you kind of a bridge. Now, this is like this bridge story. It's still in the Christian crazy, not quite into our main story, but it's right on the verge there. And Rick Perry. Rick Perry was recently interviewed by CBN News. Because again, hard-hitting political news, CBN is where everyone goes. Said no one ever. But Rick Perry wanted to share on this political, his political talk here about a little prophecy he had. He had a little prophecy. and he wanted to share it with us and how prophecies are fulfilled. So CBN, go ahead.
Secretary, you are about to realize a prophecy spoken about your life.
Yeah.
How does that feel?
Fascinating story. In 2011, when I was in the process of deciding whether or not I was going to run for president, and a dear friend of mine, neurosurgeon, a great Christian brother named Dr. Charles Gordon, he said, hey, I had a friend who shared with me a vision, a view of prophecy about you in the White House, in the Oval Office, with your grandson. Well, my son's married, but no children, but I knew I was planning on being the next president of the United States, so shoot, I knew how to take that, right?
But it didn't quite work out that way.
As I tell people, if you want to make God laugh,
run for president and be Rick Perry? No? Sorry, messed that one up. No. Okay, so Rick, I'm going to go ahead and kind of cut this human peace story a little bit short, but I'll still let Rick tell more of his story. So Rick had a prophecy. Someone saw him in the Oval Office. Some of them saw him with his male heir, his grandson. What a wonderful, wonderful prophecy. But then Rick runs for president. A first time doesn't get it. Rick has a grandchild. Oh my goodness. What could it be? Oh, it's a girl. Boo. Boo. God only cares about boys. Well, Rick is going to run for office again and have another grandchild. And oh, boo. It doesn't have a penis. Oh, God's prophecies only matter when it comes to men. Rick, what's going on here? Rick started feeling like, I don't know. What do I do? Was this prophecy real? Was it not real? Would God finally fulfill his prophecy? Would he? Oh, you know he will.
But then on July 4th, Perry's long-awaited grandson was born. And on October 4th, the prophecy became truth.
So Griffin James Perry, his nickname's Finn, he will go into the White House, into the Oval Office with the POTUS.
We talk about God's faithfulness. When you and Finn walk into the Oval Office and meet with President Trump, that will be the fulfillment of this prophecy, but you're not walking into that office the way that you thought you were going to get there.
Correct. And your plan isn't always God's plan.
Because God's plan always involves you getting caught up in a Ukrainian scandal that may end in impeachment, scandal, fraud, and everything else. But hey, we're excited. You got a picture of your male heir with you and a disgusting president in the Oval Office. Prophecy realized. She is a real prophet after all. Wonderful. God loves us. God loves Rick Perry. So my answer is Rick Perry was on Dancing with the Stars. Sean Spicer was on Dancing with the Stars. I can't wait for Sean Spicer's prophecy to come to fruition. But at the same time, Rick Perry's caught up in all of this stuff. He's caught up in all of this stuff, as he was saying on CBN, with the Ukraine and lying for the president. But at the same time, Rick has also said, I swear there was nothing below board on this. Everything was above board on everything. So we'll see here. But at least Rick got his picture. We love prophecies that end in defeat. I eventually had an heir, and I eventually got to take a picture in the Oval Office. Praise God. Womp, womp, womp. Sorry. I mentioned all this to transition us slightly and completely towards our main story about complementarianism, or in theological circles, as you should call this, misogyny. Complementarianism, I'll read you the definition. Not Stuart's definition, the internet's definition, aka Wikipedia. So Wikipedia has this to say: complementarianism is a theological view in Christianity, Judaism, and Islam that men and women have different but complementary roles and the responsibilities in marriage, family life, religious leadership, and elsewhere. So earlier in the program, I had said complementarianism equals misogyny, and I'd still stand behind that, and I will fight you on it if you disagree with me. I say this because as much as people want to have wordplay in how they're defining this theologically and otherwise, I'm really speaking of this from a perspective of practically how it ends up being lived out. And complementarianism means that the man has a role in the household, the woman has a role in the household. One is the head, one is subservient. Kind of tracking with me here? And some of this is how it's also read in Scripture. But the biggest issue, because in many ways, people can use Scripture to justify just about anything. And also when reading through Scripture, we also have to read it into the fact that we lived in a time that was very patriarchal. Again, very man-centric, man-led, patriarchal time in history. Old Testament, extremely patriarchal. New Testament, still incredibly patriarchal with a little bit of, modernist flair to it, but still very, very patriarchal. Men are the tops, women are the bottoms, and I'm not really talking about sexual positions here. Ho! Not even getting into missionary here. So, I mention this because me being a person who, until you hear otherwise, is still an ordained pastor within an evangelical denomination, which I won't mention here because getting too much heat means I'm going to lose that ordination certificate that's sitting not really on the wall, but in the back of a closet somewhere, but it's in a beautiful frame. It's in a gorgeous frame. Yeah. Again, I'm talking about things because I really just don't care. People roast me on this. But complementarianism is different than egalitarianism. Egalitarianism says that men and women are both created equal in God's image, really pulling from Genesis, the Genesis narrative that we are both made in God's image. That both men and women are image bearers of God, right? Tracking with me here. Egalitarianism. Complementarianism would argue that the men are supposed to be head of the household, head of the church, and what that looks like. And I know people can use Scripture to say, well, I'll argue with this scripturally, but in practice, I really can't give you anything to look at that would refute what we're doing in our own church body. So, examples. I grew up in and around Southern Baptist Church, Conservative Baptist Church, and everything that is Baptist in my early formative years of my life, essentially just meaning that I learned to be very anal retentive and fear everything. That's what it meant. And within those roles, within the Baptist Church, because we're going to get to the Southern Baptist Convention very, very soon in this conversation. And what that simply meant was that, here's in practice, because again, I'm a pastor, I've worked in and around churches, is that men in leadership roles can lead men. Women can lead women and children, but men can lead them all. But women, they can't speak over men. Maybe they can kind of have a Bible study where they're talking as long as the woman's husband is there and he's kind of like okay with it. Yeah. It's a two-tiered system of being able to view faith, religion, and life. Dudes can do this. Women can do this. It also is something, it's kind of how you see a lot of life lived out through Islamic states, especially like with Saudi Arabia and Egypt and other areas where, only recently, guess what? Women are allowed to drive a car. What? Really? Yeah, that's a thing. And I know you may say, but you're blending Islam and Christianity. No. Up until recently, and I'm not even sure if this is true still recently, but Southwestern Seminary, a.k.a. Southwestern Baptist Seminary, used to have, I think they may still, but they got a lot of bad heat about it a couple years ago, but they used to have an actual homemaker degree for women. Because men would come to Southwestern and they would want to be studying to become pastors, get their MDiv so they can go out and represent a church. But at the same time, hey, they're good men and they're married. Their wives need to learn too, because their wives need to learn how to be good pastors' wives. They need to learn how to have a homemaking degree. That was a thing. A real thing at an accredited seminary. Yeah. If we are true to reading Scripture, that God made man and woman in God's image, both have value, both have merit, and both bear the image of God. So for us to dance around this is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So Stuart, why are you bringing all of this up? Oh, well, I'm really excited that you mentioned this because there was an article this last week in the Christian Post. It's by Leah Marie Ann Kelt. And the article is entitled, Beth Moore Answers. Does complementarian theology cause abuse in the church? So if anyone has ever been living under a rock, the Southern Baptist Convention has been rocked with sexual allegation scandal, deep and wide, cover-ups, issues, and as anything that you could feel as disgusting as possible. It's happened in the Southern Baptist Church. Okay, so let's just run with that. So this article begins by saying is this. Bible teacher Beth Moore has said that while complementarian theology does not necessarily cause abuse in the church, having too few women in power has directly contributed to the sexual abuse crisis in the Southern Baptist Church. Okay. Again, I have no issue here against Beth Moore. Besides the fact that, geez Louise, Beth Moore, just call it out. Call it out for what it is. Stop tiptoeing and dancing around here. Oh, but wait, you're speaking to a crowd of Southern Baptists? Oh, wait, they are also connected to Lifeway. Oh, they're also a large denomination, and they buy a lot of your books and your Sunday school curriculum and small group curriculum. Oh, Beth Moore, come on, just call for what it is, and don't worry about how it's gonna hurt your pocketbook. But guess what? It still happened. So Beth Moore, who's the founder of Living Proof Ministries, she had a message that was entitled, The Courage to Confront the Crisis of Abuse in the Church, at the Caring Well conference that's hosted by the Ethics and Religious Commission at the Southern Baptist Convention. So again, Ethics, Religious Liberty Commission at the Southern Baptist Convention. What they're trying to do is they're trying to clean up a lot of the dirty crap that has been happening within their denomination. And they have, hey, we're having a Caring Well conference. How to care for people and not touch them and abuse them. And yes. So Beth Moore, again, this has come from Christian Post, so just, again, temper your expectations. So she began, I'm quoting back from the article, she began by asking the question of whether complementarian theology, the idea that women have distinctive roles in the family and the church are forbidden from holding certain offices in the church, is to blame for the crisis in the Southern Baptist. Now, the answer is no, she said. Sin and gross selfishness in the human heart causes abuse. Demonic influences can cause abuse. Hold on a second. Were we listening to the Christian Crazy earlier where we're somehow we just throw Satan, demons at stuff to be able to blame people's bad behavior or to blame bad systems within the church? Hearing that, and so I had no axe to grind against Beth Moore, but I kind of do. Yeah, sin is, so the Southern Baptist Church isn't bad. Sin is what caused people to abuse others within the church. It's just sin. Fine. But the idea of complementarianism, that men are the head of everything, that women are subservient, is toxic. It's toxic and it's antithetical to the idea that God created men and women in his own image. In their own image, if we're going to read scripture even better. So sure, was sin and gross selfishness involved? Oh, absolutely it was. But also did the Southern Baptist Church, along with the Catholic Church and other churches, set up systems where abuse could run rampant. So, let me think about this. I have a house. I have a crawl space under my house. Now, in my crawl space, if I was to allow lots of water to pool up in my crawl space, I'm going to have rampant issues of mold throughout my house. Following here? I could say that sin causes mold, or I could say the fact that I'm not dealing with the core issue of water under the foundations of my house. That's a problem. I mean, I can certainly, just blame mold and how the church is handling this, which is sin. We could do that. We can do that. We can do that. We can pass the buck. But at the end of the effing day, this idea that we've talked about on the show for many a time, this idea that is entrenched even in this, that we've talked about this, the Billy Graham rule. The Billy Graham rule. Men and women can't be alone together. The men and women can't do this. This is what Mike Pence and Mother follow in the Oval Office. That he can never have a meeting alone with a woman. Not because she's another human being that he may need to literally have a meeting with. No. We need to have the door open because she is something that could be sinful and lead to sin. Now, with Mike Pence, we know that's temptation's a little different for Pensy. But I mean, I've dealt with this. I remember one of my first jobs in ministry, I was good friends with the pastor I was working with. And the pastor, I was in charge of doing a lot of the kind of children, the kind of youth ministry in the church. And the pastor's wife did children's ministry. And we needed to go meet with another large church to kind of be debriefed. But we had to drive in several cars because we didn't want to be seen together, because we didn't want the appearance of evil. Also, we didn't want me to be tempted. And at the same time, we couldn't afterwards go out to lunch to debrief and talk about that conversation because, again, hey, appearance of evil is almost as bad as evil in itself. Yes. So this method of complementarianism also leads to misogyny. I said that earlier. It does. It absolutely leads to misogyny because what has happened, especially within the evangelical and conservative ilks of church, is this. They believe they will not. Okay, I'm going to be honest. If you were to ask them directly about this, they will deny it. But if you look at the practice with which they practice, the things with which they do, their actions will say that I'm absolutely right. So within this view of complementarian church, one, women are not allowed to ever speak in authority over men. Again, messed up, it's effed up. Because we're all made in God's image, we should be equals. And we all have the same minds. We all have the same drive to hopefully within the church do good things. So the fact that a woman is not allowed to, especially in complementarian churches, to be able to preach and to speak to men is disgusting and it's misogynistic. The idea that we have like a two-tier system of the gospel, two-tier system in heaven, is also messed up and wonky. Now, I can even get more into that in a moment. But. So what that also begins to happen is this, especially within the Southern Baptist Church, and this is how the Southern Baptist Church has actually blamed things and gotten off on things like the Billy Graham rule, is this. See, the insidious nature of the Billy Graham rule, which is it permeates through a lot of the conservative mindset, is that women tempt men. And somehow men are not really responsible for their own actions. They're not responsible to not touch or to do or to sex or whatever those men do. And so, really, the onus is thrown onto the women. So if a pastor needs to talk to a woman in his office, he's got to leave his door open or have someone else in the room. Oh, because that temptress could lead him to sin. Clutch the pearls! No. Can't we just call people predators and creeps? Like even within the Willow Creek Church, let's just go ahead and say this. Like, the Billy Graham rule would have not covered Bill Hybels. No, Bill Hybels was a predator and a creep. He was a predator and a creep. The Billy Graham rule would have not fixed this. Or if it did, it's not going to fix his heart. He's a predator and a creep. And the fact that the evangelicals continue to stand behind a predator and a creep, see what I did there, is disgusting. And evangelicals continue with their vote to say that we don't believe women. We don't believe women. But look at all the good presidents Trump is doing. Oh, we don't want to comment on his personal life and other stuff that he's got over 20 women that have accused him of sexual assault. No. But look what he's doing in the Supreme Court. No. Complementarianism sets up a system where women are devalued, women's voices are devalued, and they are not believed. Where men are the head of situations. And I know, I'm going to go on a slight tangent here, but I know you're going to be able to say, Stuart, you're just being tangential. You're just using these as excuses in the extreme. And I am a bit, but I'm actually not. Because this complementarian view I've heard used again and again, where you have pastors, male pastors counseling women who are not married to Christians, but these women that are within the church. And they may be in an abusive situation where they continue to tell the woman, but the man is the head of the household. You need to listen to his guidance, even if that woman is married to an abusive man. How effed up is that? How effed up is that? And if you really think about this logically, God set up this system so you can continue to be abused and let the man continue to do that? But we can blame his sin on the situation, but you're still required to be subservient to the man that continues to abuse you. Crazy. And it's messed up. It is messed up. So I'm sorry, Beth Moore. I honestly feel like you just cashed out. You saw the Southern Baptist Church and Lifeway bookstores as a major seller for your curriculum. You did not want to speak truth in a platform where you were allowed to speak truth. All right. Now remember, I told you this. I told you I'd be here early in the episode. Bet you didn't think it'd take me that long. I didn't either. It takes a lot of calibrations to be able to time travel. So here we are. So me from the past, was just complaining that I thought Beth Moore did not do enough to stand up on her platform when she had it in front of the Southern Baptist Convention, mainly because she makes a lot of money from him. And I still stand by that. But the new news that was not part of our show, which happened like a week after our show had been recorded, was this latest bit of fun from John MacArthur. If you don't know who John MacArthur is, he's the guy that names Bibles after himself and then goes and tells people that they're being narcissistic. Yeah, there is. There's a John MacArthur study Bible. Who doesn't like to name the Bible after themselves? That's a whole different discussion, but it's a valid discussion too. I think that someone should have some time is that the sheer arrogance of naming a Bible after yourself. I digress. Sorry. So recently, this whole conversation about women in ministry and women being able to be pastors in ministry has been something that has been rocking around the whole Southern Baptist world. And while recently at the Truth Matters conference, which, come on, we gotta love that for people. Truth matters because we're the ones that have the truth. So while recently at the Truth Matters conference, John MacArthur was asked about Beth Moore, and he gave a pithy answer, essentially just saying or telling Beth Moore to just go home. Not to her face. She wasn't at this conference, but it's easy to be an a-hole when the person that you're being an a-hole to is not right in front of you when you're on stage. So kudos for being a small man, John MacArthur, but this isn't the first time you've been a small man. So he also went on to say this, and I'm going to go ahead and quote him directly, saying, "There is no case that can be made biblically for a woman preacher, period, paragraph, end of discussion." Okay, thanks, John, because you do have a Bible named after yourself. I guess you can end the discussion. Then he later added this: "Just because you have the skill to sell jewelry on TV sales channels doesn't mean you should be preaching. There are people who have certain hawking skills, natural abilities to sell. They have energy and personality and all of that. That doesn't qualify you to preach." And he also went on to say that he found the concept of women preachers profoundly troubling, and that the Me Too movement, again, is the culture reclaiming ground in the church. When leaders of evangelicalism roll over to women preachers, the feminists have really won the battle, he said. Continuing, "The primary effort in feminism is not equality. They don't want equality. That's why 99% of plumbers are men. They don't want equal power to be a plumber. They want to be senators, preachers, congressmen, and president. The power structure in a university, they want..." I'm not quite sure how the university figures into this, but the power structure in the university, they want power, not equality. This is the highest location they can send to that power in the evangelical church and overturn what is clearly scriptural. So, let's just go ahead and say this. Let's say this all together. Okay, I'll lead you guys in this. John MacArthur is an asshole. Hey, you in the back, you weren't getting that. Okay, sorry. It's me from the future also singing this here. John MacArthur is an asshole. Yeah. Even in the future, I can still censor that out. But what I'm getting at here, as much as I was decrying Beth Moore for not standing strong enough up on a platform, I understand why she can do things like this, because she wants to continue to have a platform, even though I still think the Southern Baptist Church needed to hear it from her. Because you end up having folks like this that are unapologetic, misogynistic assholes. Yes, just like John MacArthur. And conversations like this are so just frustrating, but at the same time, for me, they're exciting, because you see a lot of the people like we like to skewer on our show, like the Franklin Grahams, like the John MacArthurs, like the Robert Jeffress of the world, that are really just kind of part of the baby boomers that are just going to eventually die off. Because, as we've been talking about here, this idea of being egalitarian, this idea that men and women are created equal in the eyes of God. This is truth. It says it right off the bat, the beginning of the Bible. Men and women are created equal. Men and women are made in the image of God. I don't know why it's so hard for people to understand this, but for people like MacArthur, the reason they do this is because they are threatened. They are threatened that someone is going to do a better job than them. They are threatened that they're going to get out-intellectualized by someone else. They are threatened because they are small men that are compensating for their smallness by holding on to power and control. And again, none of this has anything to do with Jesus. So, I just wanted to break in to the show here with future Stuart telling you that part of it. Because I wanted this to be a little bit more fair and balanced. What a catchphrase. Maybe a news channel should have a catchphrase like that. Fair and balanced. But only if they would actually be fair and balanced. Total aside there. Sorry. Future Stuart is getting off in a tangent direction here, and I'm going to go ahead and cede the future and cede this part of the show back to Stuart of the past. So you guys be nice to him. He's, a little slow. He's not as evolved as future Stuart is. At least future Stuart has about 2 weeks on past Stuart. So be kind to him, because guess what? You thought you were done with Christian crazy, but in the whole spirit of this argument about why men are small men, and why men like to see women as complementary roles in the church. Let's hop in very quickly. I have a feeling very quickly we're going to be hopping into talking about our littlest of little men, Robert Jeffress. So I will cede the microphone to the steward of the past. So proceed, continue with the show, and just don't tell him. It'll mean a paradox of time and all sorts of weirdness. So just nod along and act like you've been listening to that old Stuart the whole time. All right? All right. Later, guys. And I'm going to use that. To pivot this idea of complementarianism, to pivot to a side conversation that totally fits. And if you don't agree with me, I'm going to bite you on it. Actually, I really wouldn't. If you don't agree with me on it, just quit listening to the show. So, that's my way of handling it. So I'm circling back also when we're talking about complementarianism to the conservative response to Greta Thunberg talking about climate change and issues with that. And the best person to really kind of be a mouthpiece for conservatism, who is also a Fox News contributor, is our favorite little bitch, Robert Jeffress. So what does Robert Jeffress have to do with this? Because again, he's a man. He's a little man speaking out of his platform against women's.
Just got back from the UN to hear our tremendous president give a blockbuster speech on religious liberty. I mean, it was absolutely tremendous.
It's so tremendous. I'm like still hard after it. It's whatever he does is amazing.
And look, this Greta Thunberg, the 16-year-old, she was warning today about the mass extinction of humanity. Somebody needs to read poor Greta Genesis chapter 9 and tell her next time she worries about global warming, just look at a rainbow. That's God's promise that the polar ice caps aren't going to melt and flood the world again.
Oh, you little man, Robert Jeffress. But he is exceedingly doing a great job with being able to quiet voices of women. And I wanted to kind of throw a couple shout outs to, comes from the independent.co.uk, of why are powerful men so scared of Greta Thunberg? And it's a fantastic article. And I think they hit the matter of this. And they say at a deep level, the language of climate denialism is tied up with a form of masculine identity predicated on modern industrial capitalism, specifically the Promethean idea of the conquest of nature by man in a world specifically made by men. They continue saying, by attacking industrial capitalism and its ethos of politics as usual, Thunberg is not only attacking the core beliefs and worldview of certain sorts of men, but also their sense of masculine self-worth. Male rage is their knee-jerk response. Thunberg did not try to be nice when she confronted the world leaders at the United Nations last week. She did not defer or smile. She did not attempt to make other people feel comfortable. And again, we see that what was Trump's response? He said, she seems like a very happy young girl looking forward to a bright and wonderful future. It's so nice to see. Yeah. Trump's being a dick right here. And there's no other way to sugarcoat that when in his responses, because he doesn't have an answer. And others' answer has been to call out her issues with having Asperger's syndrome, or beginning to say that she is mentally ill. And that is also a low blow against the truth that she is saying here. She's a person with autism that is speaking out proudly. She's a person with autism that is speaking truth into the face of those that are powerful. And in all honesty, I think that this is a prophetic voice. This is an absolute prophetic voice that is being spoken here. And it's not just me seeing this. Is that from the christiancensory.org, they had said this. They mentioned that her speech is a prophetic speech at the UN towards climate action. She is a prophetic voice, and I would absolutely wholeheartedly agree with him. I felt that she has been doing this for a while, and she continues to speak in a way that makes the powerful uncomfortable but she speaks truth. She speaks absolute truth, which again is the mantle of a prophet, one that speaks truth in uncomfortable surroundings, one that speaks truth when the voices of power want to quiet her. And in the Christian century, they put it this way, which I kind of love this. Thunberg's words were designed to disturb us, shake us out of the illusion that someone else will fix the problem, and make us see ourselves as we are. Some choose to mock the prophet and her passion. It's a way to avoid having to take the message seriously. And even those who affirm her message may end up turning on their ordinary lives with no idea how to respond to the demands. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Herzl described biblical prophecy as the voice that God has lent to the silent agony of voice to the plundered poor. And in this case, the plundered poor includes the earth itself, as well as those who are already suffering from the effects of climate change. And we need to be people that listen to the prophets, listen to those that speak truth. And hers is a voice that speaks truth. And complementarianism wants to quiet women's voices that speak truth. It's a symptom of an age of the patriarchy that needs to go away. And hopefully as we move forward, we will see more and more of that, especially as we have a president who is a misogynist president. I hope that we see that this age will end. So as we end this broadcast, just a reminder that you can catch us on podcast at www.snarkyfaith.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter. But I want to send you out the holiest amount of grace and peace and snark. Let us be a people that make change when change is needed. Go out and do good. I'm out of here.
WCOM is listener-supported community radio, and Snarky Faith is only possible through our sponsors. Lumen, a spiritual community of seekers, sojourners, question askers, doubters, and skeptics, is a collective of fellow travelers that embrace the truth that all of life is sacred, hope is real, and tomorrow can be a better day than today. All are welcome. You can find more information at www.lumencommunities.com.